Hello everyone and welcome to the Ticker.com's news channel on YouTube. On this channel, we review stock markets and discuss financial news, market trends, and economic data from Wall Street to Global Street. So let's dive in. We begin our review of the global economy with key releases in the US, Europe, China, India, and Japan. World markets gyrated in choppy trading as investors reacted to a flood of economic data, merger announcements, and corporate earnings. In the US, investors hoping for the start of a rate cut as early as this month were disappointed after the economy added a sharply higher 272,000 new jobs in May. The job additions surpassed the most optimistic expectations, keeping the economy on track to add more than 2 million jobs in 2024. Across the Atlantic, the European Central Bank lowered three policy rates by 25 basis points for the first time since 2016, but sent strong signals that future cuts in the immediate future are less likely because inflationary pressures are still elevated. The hawkish rate cut lifted bond yields and supported an upward trend in the euro as investors surmised higher rates were likely to stay longer than previously as expected. In Asia, China's exports rebounded sharply in May on the back of strong demand from ASEAN member countries and the rebound in demand from the U.S. China's trade surplus jumped to a 3-month high, and a weak increase in imports put pressure on Chinese stocks, indicating that the revival in the domestic demand may not be as strong as previously expected. The Reserve Bank of India held its policy rate unchanged at 6.5% for the 8th consecutive meeting in a row. The central bank also revised its higher GDP growth rate to 7.2% from 7.0% and held its estimate for inflation in the current fiscal year at 4.5%. In other economic news, the U.S. trade deficit rebounded in April after imports rose faster than exports, and the German trade surplus surged after exports rose with EU member states. The Swiss jobless rate held steady, UK home prices accelerated for the second month in a row in May, and France's trade deficit shrank in April from the previous year. Japan's inflation-adjusted household spending rose for the first time in April from a year ago, making the first increase in 14 months. Let us review key events in global bond, currency, and commodity markets last week. The yield on the 10-year U.S. Treasury hovered below 4.5% following May's hot non-farm payroll additions. Crude oil declined 2% to $75 a barrel after traders feared demand could weaken amid higher rates, staying longer amid a resilient job market and economic conditions. Natural gas prices in Europe stabilized at 33 euros per megawatt hour after the flow of Norwegian natural gas resumed to northern England. The euro edged higher to above $1.08 despite the ECB lowering rates by 25 basis points but holding out for restrictive rates in the near future. The yen traded near 155 against the US dollar ahead of the policy meetings by the Bank of Japan and the U.S. Federal Reserve next week. We now shift our attention to major stock markets in the US, Europe, and Asia. The S&P 500 index and the Nasdaq Composite rebounded, and traders lowered expectations of a rate cut at the September meeting. European markets declined for the fourth week in a row after ECB's hawkish rate cut poured cold water over expectations of additional rate cuts. The Nikkei 225 stock average declined for the third week in a row, and investors worried that a weakening yen in the long run is likely to impact corporate earnings. Hong Kong indices rebounded after China's exports rose sharply in May, raising expectations of economic growth meeting annual target of 5%. Indian market indices erased most of the 6% losses on Tuesday after the ruling party returned to power in a coalition government with a reduced majority. Let us shift our attention to merger deals, market movers, and earnings updates from leading companies last week. GameStop declined 18%, and the video game retailer posted a larger than expected decline in sales in its latest quarter. The company announced a secondary stock offering in as many months. Vail Resorts dropped 13%, and the ski resort operator reported weaker than expected fiscal third quarter results. Five Below declined 15% after the discount retailer estimated weaker than expected revenue in the current quarter. Lululemon Athletica jumped 4% after the athleisure apparel retailer reported higher than expected first quarter earnings and sales. Hewlett-Packard Enterprise rose 12% after the advanced computer system maker reported a better than expected fiscal second quarter earnings. Deere & Company declined after the farm equipment maker said in a regulatory filing that it plans to trim its production and salaried workforce as the company struggled with the global demand slowdown. Inditex Inditex jumped 5% after the parent company of apparel retailer Zara reported higher sales and earnings in the first quarter. Vistry Group, the UK-based home builder, agreed to sell 1,750 homes to the private equity group Blackstone and its partner Regis in a £580 million deal that will increase the supply of homes in the southeast England. AP Moller Maersk, the Danish shipping giant, raised its annual profit outlook. Stericycle soared 15% after the company agreed to be acquired by Waste Management for $7.2 billion. MarineMax jumped on a report that the largest recreational boat retailer is in talks to be acquired by One Water Marine for $40 a share. In the week ahead, investors in the U.S. are looking forward to the Federal Reserve's rate decision and economic projections on Wednesday. The Fed is expected to keep its interest rate range unrevised between 5.25% and 5.5%. Moreover, the consumer price index is expected to hold steady at 3.4%, and the core inflation is likely to edge slightly lower to 3.5%. In Germany, wholesale prices are expected to rise for the third month in a row, and industrial production is expected to rise in the Eurozone and Italy, but decline in the UK after rising in the previous 2 months in a row. Investors are also looking forward to the release of international trade balances in the euro area. China is set to announce its consumer and producer price inflation data for May, and investors are hoping that the deflationary trends are easing in the second largest economy in the world. The Bank of Japan is set to announce its monetary decisions, and the central bank is expected to keep rates on hold. In India, investors are looking forward to inflation and international trade data, and service exports are likely to surpass goods export amid rising demand from the U.S. You can review daily U.S. and global financial market news, stock movers, earnings releases, SEC filings, and economic updates on ticker.com and 123jump.com. You can find the latest financial books on Rodera.com, keep up with financial industry events on eventsinamerica.com, review ETF and mutual fund performance and in-depth profiles on tickerfunds.com, and review market updates and stock movers in India on niveshak.in. That is all for today, and we will see you